When I was a kid in elementary, middle, and high school, I'll admit that I wasn't very interested in reading. I remember often the teacher would give us 10 to 15 minutes to finish reading a chapter, and then we would discuss what we had read. I often found myself unable to concentrate, reading the same paragraph 5 times and not being able to remember what it said afterwards. My older sister, on the other hand, read many books for pleasure. I was not that way until I came here to Virginia Tech in 2003. Something about being in a new environment with lots of exciting opportunities, as well as more personal responsibilities and challenges, awakened me. I was in the leadership program my freshman year, where they taught us naturally about leadership and also about diversity. I was very grateful for this, and especially on the topic of diversity, was made aware of many things that I was not aware of before. I heard points of views that I hadn't heard before, and I found this all very eye-opening and important to me. One book that I read during this time that most affected my life's path and the way that I would use my education was the Bible. I found a plan to read the Bible in a year with daily readings, which I followed. Although I'd gone to church the majority of my life, I learned that I didn't really understand the Bible, I just understood pieces of it. And what I found most intriguing were the miracles, such as Moses parting the Red Sea, the faith that was so far beyond anything tangible or visible, such as Noah building the ark, and the love, sacrifice, and obedience displayed by the life of Jesus Christ. Jesus said that the greatest commandment was to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. He said that the second greatest commandment was to love your neighbor as yourself. There is no greater commandment than these. After reflecting upon this, I found it confusing as to why so many argue over other minor points rather than agreeing and collaborating on these major points, especially when you look at the amount of absolutely unnecessary suffering that there is in the world. I was grateful to find other verses that further defined love. I found, among other things, that love is active, love is sacrificial, and love is fearless. So I began using these verses as guidelines for my life. Another book I read during this time that greatly influenced me was a book by a civil rights leader named John Lewis. And this book is called Walking in the Wind, a Memoir of the Movement. In his book, he tells about his involvement in the movement since its beginning with the foundation of the SNCC, which stands for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. He also tells about being arrested and beaten on numerous occasions during demonstrations, as well as spending his summers visiting houses and registering voters. And he also tells about every aspect, basically, of running an organization, including the endless but necessary fundraising. This is an amazing book, and the civil rights movement was an amazing time when such a large amount of people joined together and did self-sacrificial acts to bring about the social change that they longed to see. After hearing about my favorite books in college, you might not be surprised that I went on to get a degree in Interdisciplinary Studies with a focus on leadership and social change. But unlike most alumni, I didn't go and find a job in my field or go into grad school or even find an established organization to volunteer with for a year or two before moving on to the real world. Instead, I co-founded and began directing a nonprofit organization while still an undergraduate student. This organization is called Project Esperanza, and we primarily serve the Haitian immigrant population in Puerto Plata, Dominican Republic, in the areas of education, social aid, and community development. It started as a group of friends traveling and volunteering in the Dominican Republic together, but we quickly became a Virginia Tech student organization and then later turned into a nonprofit organization. Our main programs include, first, a residential program for kids that were working and living on the streets, and along with housing and everything that goes with that, we provide schooling, vocational training, and some recreation. We also have 2 schools that serve Haitian immigrant children, and if you don't know, Haiti and the Dominican Republic share the island of Hispaniola in the Caribbean. And while both countries are considered developing countries, Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, so the Dominican Republic often serves as a bit of a refuge for Haitians. Our schools currently have 13 teachers and directors and about 150 students. And then we also have expat volunteers who join us, dozens every year. They are able to help out and then gain insight and experience through our organization. And then lastly, we've worked hard and continue to work hard to set up some sustainable businesses so that we as an organization aren't just asking and waiting for donations, but we're being active and doing all that we can to generate income from within the community and creating jobs at the same time. And we found that this is not an easy thing to do, but we continue to work at it because it is important. Now, I went down this path without looking back and without really looking around. And I'll admit that I didn't realize at first how abnormal this path is. But over the years, I've heard the comments of family members, and I've made comparisons to the lives of friends, and I do realize that it's an abnormal path. And I think what seems to be the most abnormal is that I spend pretty much 100% of the time in the Dominican Republic running the organization from there and living actually in solidarity with our beneficiaries. I have peers who have done similar things, but they normally live in the Dominican Republic, not in the Dominican Republic sometimes, but live in the developing world for a year or two, or they may have a cause or an organization that they raise funds for, raise awareness for, but they mostly do that from their home country and don't actually live on the ground. And then I see some people from the generation before me who get involved in international development and may move to a developing country, but they normally do so after more preparation, saving, and support raising. But I really see very few people who do as I have done in virtually abandoning your prior life and putting absolutely everything into your cause. And I admit, after going through what I've gone through, I can see why others don't do it this way. But it was a fearless love that led me to do it. And I believe that more months I would have spent trying to prepare in the United States would have been months where I could have been distracted by comforts and distance from our beneficiaries. And it also would have meant less time caring for people who had no one to care for them. So I plowed straight ahead, again, without looking back. On the other hand, most of my peers stayed in the US and continued with school and work. And I'm not criticizing this path in any way, but want to share a different path that's driven by a different mindset. I realize that I'm blessed. And I think the biggest way that I'm blessed is that I've been able to receive a great education all the way through college, and I've had parents that have highly supported me in that. I realize that many others are not as blessed, and I honestly didn't realize this before volunteering in the Dominican Republic and seeing many who were not in school, kids who were not in school at all, and seeing many kids who were not able to advance past a certain level in school. I also saw schools that were much less organized and nurturing than the schools that I attended. All of us who are able to attend and graduate a university like Virginia Tech are blessed. But the world is designed in a way that U.S. college graduates usually use their education to work and serve in U.S. institutions. Now, I've come to find this to be a little bit backwards, if not a lot backwards. Those human beings who are the most prepared serve the institutions that are the most advanced. This is like a doctor spending all of his time and energy serving the healthy while the sick remain sick or even die. The world should be designed in such a way that the most prepared human beings use their skills to develop the most underdeveloped of places. What if we spent less resources on things like comfort, convenience, and entertainment, and spent more resources on peacefully developing other countries? This is not an easy thing to do, I know. Lots and lots of patience and persistence is required. But is constructing skyscrapers an easy thing to do? Or is traveling into outer space an easy thing to do? No, but we've done them and we continue to do them. I'm not suggesting that we develop in a colonistic or dominating sort of way, but in a humble and catalytic sort of way. It's true we have Peace Corps and we have USAID, and I'm not criticizing these organizations, but I'm actually pleading for more development and advancement of this sort of work, more focus in this sort of thing. Just imagine if all of the geniuses who work on developing video games and computer software instead were sent to work on international development. I sometimes wonder if we don't develop other nations as much because we are scared of them as a threat, we might see them as a threat or a potential enemy, and we don't want to empower our enemies. I'm certain that many people are afraid of losing comforts, resources, and perhaps security. But if it's fear that holds us back, then I return to 1 John 4:18, where I learned that love is fearless. I do hope that more people will join me in attempting to redesign things so that more people can use their world-class education where it is needed most. Because the need remains great, and I think that we all know what we would want done if we were the ones suffering. Thank you.